So I think in terms of 2024, the box office performance has been quite mixed. We have had positive surprises also coming from the likes of Stree, which was actually a medium budget film but turned out to be a blockbuster, almost in line with Gadar, and even collections even surpassed that for that matter. So clearly, I think it's been a mixed bag performance. I think as far as large franchise films are concerned, we haven't seen anything really come out over there. Films have failed consistently at box office. So I think the entire dependency on large budget films, remains to be high. If you look at the box office numbers, we are down somewhere about 15% versus FY24, which is rather, if you call it CY23. So I think from that standpoint, that decline was very much expected because in CY23 we had a large base. Films like Gadar 2, Oh My God 2, films like Animal, these were large blockbusters that year. So clearly, we have to see this kind of a decline, and which has happened. But I think going ahead, things actually should change. I think Hollywood is going to be phenomenally strong. We were actually expecting that CY24 will be a very strong year for Hollywood, but again, Hollywood franchise films have been delayed yet again. And I think CY25 could be a very very big year as far as Hollywood is concerned, and that will drive box office in a very big positive manner. So I think the concerns remain for the Hindi film industry, the nature of content. The only thing is franchise, right? So I think franchise films are the future. Gadar 2, Jolly LLB 2 is going to something may come next year. Border 2, we are seeing other franchise films also coming in. Pushpa 2 was a massive hit that we've seen in the Hindi belt today, we've seen. So very clearly, I think franchise is going to drive the future for Hindi film industry. We need to make differentiated and the right content for the audience today. The top two films this year, Pushpa 2 and Stree 2, both are franchise films. So what has made the difference is clearly franchise. And I think Hindi film industry has now kind of realized that they cannot, kind of piggyback on content which is, below par in nature or substandard in nature. They can't make remake of English films. They can't make remake of regional films. They need to create their own franchise, whether be it War, Dhoom, Pathan, all these things put together. So I think franchise is the future. I think this year we just saw about 2, 3, 4 franchise films which are large in nature. I think next year we have at least 7 to 8 large franchise films which are lined up. So clearly, I think that is something which will be a big support for box office next year. So I think, franchise, firstly, even if the content is below par, let's say, I think franchise somewhere has got a very strong recall value amongst the audience, right? So in terms of marketing initiatives, in terms of, getting the audience on ground, you don't need to spend that much amount of money. So the economics are much better as far as franchise is concerned. Second, I think franchise also comes with a lot of hopes and expectations, right? So the content obviously has to be good, but again, if one franchise has seen success, the second part of it will also see success. There's a high likelihood of it, if not a bigger success. So there could be a situation wherein the second franchise is, kind of operating on par with the first part. But there could also be blockbusters, like for example, Stree 2 and Pushpa 2 were bigger blockbusters as compared to the first part which was there. But definitely the success ratio or the success rate for franchise becomes phenomenally high. So I think in the case of Bhool Bhulaiya and Bhool Bhulaiya 3 and Singham 3, we could have seen a situation wherein the dates or the clash rather could be avoided, because clearly the film industry is going through a massive concern, right? So if you look at the supply of content, that has been a big problem. So what you saw in terms of number of films releasing every quarter for the Hindi film industry, which were around 25, 30 theatrical releases every quarter, that number has fallen down by almost about 30 to 40%. So already we are seeing that many weeks are dry. You don't have ample supply of content, and maybe that is why these cinema chains are going for re-releases and all these kind of things put together. So I think this situation could have been avoided, but I think it's the producer's choice. I think the Diwali mode, the Diwali festive, the time is such that wherein the maximum footfalls come into the cinemas and people actually want to spend and go out. So maybe that's the reason they want to do this. But my only belief is that today potentially both these films have done about 550 crores of net box office. If at all they came separately, there could have been a 15-20% higher box office that we would have seen. Reasons for the volume of films becoming lower. So one, tactically you have to see that the audience mindset has changed. The consumption habits have changed in the post-COVID era. The consumer doesn't want to go for a film which is not worth their time, effort, and money. And watching a film is now a reasonably expensive proposition as it was compared to in the pre-COVID times. Consumers have become impulsive, right? So consumption and consumer habits is the first thing. Second, of course, is that many production houses have made hefty losses. Even studios have made hefty losses. We have seen the exit of many global studios also from market like India. Disney went out. You saw Warner going out in the past, and many of the studios have also kind of shut shop in the past. So very clearly, small medium budget content is not doing well on ground, and that's why some production houses are very slow in terms of nature of films that they want to make. Third reason I would say that clearly, star power is something which is kind of fading away, right? So, for example, back in the day, star power would really drive audience in a very big manner in terms of footfalls. But now the audience has also become selective. So, apart from consumption trends, apart from OTT, audience has become phenomenally selective in terms of what they want to watch. They don't go to watch a film only basis purely star power. They want good content also as a mix. And the fourth, of course, we know that the audience is spoiled for choice. There is ample variety of content on OTT. In fact, there are films which are releasing directly on OTT platforms. So production houses are now also kind of realizing that rather than going on cinemas, taking the entire risk of whether the film does well, doesn't do well, do marketing, spend so much of effort and money, you'd rather go directly on OTT platforms. So there have been a shift from certain films which are not coming to cinemas and going directly on OTT. So these are 3-4 reasons in terms of why the number of films have actually come down. You need to have a consistent slate. So I think that is something which needs to be addressed. So I think as more corporation happens, as more production houses are able to raise money, they will have to take these bets in terms of making the creative ecosystem much better. They have to really brainstorm and think twice or thrice or even 4 times before putting some content out there for the audience, because the audience has clearly become very selective. So I think studying audience behavior, putting the right content is something which will add some respite for the film industry. So I think if you look at the star power fading away, that definitely is a reason, right, in terms of unit economics of a film. Okay, I'll actually explain the logic here. So, for example, if a film does 200 crores box office collection in terms of net box office, that film becomes a flop if the cost of the film is 300-400 crores, because a large part of the cost is the star cost and talent cost. Of course, star power brings footfalls, into the cinemas, and they should command a very hefty premium. That is very much valid. But I think there has to be some kind of benchmarking here. I think the star fees need to be benchmarked to the box office collections, because I think that is how the economics will improve. That is how the entire industry will improve, because the producers or the studios cannot take the brunt of the entire losses, right? So losses and profits, both things have to have a reasonable share here between the talent and between the production house who's putting in the capital over here. So I think that will make more business sense. I think we are already in that era right now, wherein most of the larger stars are kind of becoming producers themselves, right? So somewhere they do have a say, they do have a stake, they do have financial involvement in most of the films which are there. But wherever there are, kind of fixed fees, I think those have to be benchmarked to box office to a certain extent, so that the economics are favorable, so that the production houses and the studios end up making more money. Because otherwise, it's going to be like a situation wherein we end up, killing that duck with the golden egg, right? I mean, producers, if they keep on losing money, they may not make more films, and eventually becomes like a vicious circle and a big negative impact for the industry. I think the Khans definitely do matter, right? Because if you look at the contribution, if you look at the sheer box office numbers that they have got over the last 2 years, I think it's been phenomenally high, and they have a very high dependence on box office. But I think, one has to really accept the fact that you need to have the other part of talent pool also being ready here, because I think Aamir Khan may not do any more films in the future. Salman Khan has also become kind of selective in terms of the number of films that he's doing, and Shah Rukh Khan is all we have, who also may not be able to do more than 1 film a year, if at all, going ahead. So I think we really need to create that talent pool, so that the other age of stars can also create these kind of box office numbers. I think so far, there have been stars like Ranbir Kapoor, Ranveer Singh, even Rajkumar Rao, Ayushmann Khurrana for that matter, Kartik Aaryan for that matter. They've been extremely good in terms of generating box office, but somewhere I think there is a lag in terms of consistency. The kind of consistency the Khans had, these actors are not able to get. That's the first thing, and the kind of scale. So the kind of record-breaking collections that we've seen, from Salman Khan films, Shah Rukh Khan films, we are not able to see from these actors' films on a consistent basis. I mean, we do have a Rajkumar Rao breaking records for Stree 2, but it's not consistent enough. So I think consistency is a key here, is what we need to see from the newcomers and the next generation stars.